A New Life. A Valentine's Day Story. Written and narrated by Lady Spookaria. We stared at each other. Death had changed everything. The lip balm didn't work on her, and I wondered just how she managed to avoid it. I could no longer hear the voice in my head, the driving urge to keep me going. Did I turn her? Or did she turn me? Or perhaps something else altogether? My head swam, thinking to myself, and I wondered what was going to happen next, still coated in blood and gasping. The hunt had gone exactly as I intended, yet I didn't realize what I needed. You could say I had finally met my match. Nothing from my life before had been the same. Time moves so quickly, and yet our kind remained the same. Caught in my thoughts, I reached out to take her offered hand and accepted it when she pulled me up. Her eyes practically glowed with new life, and we held each other for a moment. She was different now. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and there was the lingering feeling of familiarity. The lip balm had altered me, and death even more so. My hand reached down to touch what should have been a stab wound. It was gone. Completely healed with not even a scar. The knife she used was slender, thin, and wouldn't have left much of a wound. She didn't question how it managed to heal on its own. You don't remember me, do you? She paused. The question hung in the air, and I tried to remember who she was. Garbed solely in blood, our bodies pressed against each other. Her hand reached down to the bedside table, to caress the ornate tim of lip balm, and lifted it up to show me. Her face flickered, if that is the best way to describe it. She briefly wore the face of many different women, before finally settled on the one that had changed me long ago. The one who gave me the lip balm and ceased my loneliness. I stared at her, amazed she was here. Speechless. I didn't exactly follow her guidelines she had set out for me when we first met. I still had the note, kept safe. Paint your lips with the red. Claim whoever you desire. Turn them into our kind. Or send them away in peace. The creed was supposed to guide my life and control how many people I claimed. I didn't claim anyone. I didn't want to turn anyone. I was far too caught up in my greed, wanting to keep this gift for myself only. I never thought I'd see you again, I answered. She cut my cheek and ran her thumb over my bottom lip. Her facial expressions were so difficult to read. Human, whatever I was, and so much greater than myself. Silently she turned and walked toward the shower. I heard a pause and the water turned on. It gave me a moment to realize for the first time, in such a long time, I felt human again. I followed her into the shower, our bodies intertwined in an intimate embrace. Once we were clean, moisturized, and dressed, I felt the telltale rise of anger. A desire that requires feeding, and my companion didn't protest. Our clothing was elegant, two form-fitting gowns smooth to the touch, polar opposite in color, and before we left, she produced the infamous circular tin. First she placed her fingertip in the crimson lip balm, before running it softly along my lips, before I returned the favor for her. No words needed between us. We left to begin the next hunt, ready and waiting. We hooked arms together. There were large crowds of people out tonight. The moonlight and smaller decorative lights of restaurants highlighted the colors of the streets. There were couples walking together, friend groups laughing, or strangers meeting for the first time in hopes of getting lucky. I felt a weakness in my fingertips. The coldness warned me I hadn't fed enough, and as though she read my mind, she took my hands, warmed them up with her own, and lifted them to her lips to kiss them. I beamed in response, and together we walked through the crowd. There were so many options that made it difficult to find the right person. I felt nothing but euphoria. Colors and sensations were highlighted. I felt like I was floating, and not since my first kill did I feel this way. Occasionally, we saw others of our kind, or whatever it was that I was. A silent nod and they soon left. A territorial dispute silently resolved by the elder. I was about to ask her about it. A finger went to her lip and I knew not to answer it yet. I wasn't sure what I had done to receive this special treatment. We found the one who was our target. I had never fed with another. The idea of being able to do so was a strange one. Our target sat by himself. A man in his late 30s. People gave off telltale signs about themselves without them realizing. The information given to us was on a different level. The tan line around where his wedding ring used to be was a sign. I could smell the faint aroma of alcohol from his pores. Over time, he'd been coping with loss through drinking. He had dark circles under his eyes and looked disheveled. Occasionally, his gaze dropped down to his phone. No doubt he'd been stood up by whatever prospective date was going to meet with him. When we stood by his table, he blinked in bewilderment and looked at his drink to wonder just how much he had. After the initial shock, he invited the pair of us to sit with him and tried to play it cool. I could hear his heart rate increase. He poured us some wine and fumbled when he tried to make small talk with us. We will take this one home with us. I heard the voice in my head, clearly this time. Her hand rested on his arm while they made small talk. He was instantly drawn in by her, and I was learning new ways to hunt. She made it look so effortless. She leaned forward and kissed his lips. I saw the lip balm take effect, and once that kiss happened, his fate was sealed. I could see what looked like glowing smoke move through his body, taking a hold of him. In a blur, we took him back home and he found himself between the pair of us. For many, this would be a dream come true, yet it would become a nightmare made flesh. We took turns sucking the life out of him. His life force swirled up in a smoky pattern before hers and mine lips met. It did not take us long before he was a withered husk on our bed. Shakily, he breathed his final gasps, and the final gasp was left unclaimed by either of us. We would need to feed again, and soon. I need many humans to keep going, and she, my elder, would have required many more. It has been lonely without having someone to share my life with, and I didn't think of the potential threat to my food supply. Tell me about yourself. I have so many questions, I pleaded with her. She gazed back at me with knowing eyes, as though she had already predicted this. She exhaled, shrugged, and painted her own lips with the lip balm once more. I wondered how much it had impacted us. We seemed to be immune, but there was always a chance it did something. She tilted her head slightly to the side, and gracefully gestured with her hand. I figured she was weighing up her options. I am older than you. I am the parent to many of our kind, and I enjoy testing my children to see whether they realize what they're dealing with. She answered, a smirk on her lips and her eyes glistened. Is that what happened earlier? How could I forget the knife to my stomach, or how I tried to end her life too? The memory of that dance would stay in my mind. Our blood combined, and I changed. The lip balm was different now. Our kind varies. She reached out and tapped the tin with her fingernails, as though she was permanently connected to it. This is a tool we use to gain what we need to feed. Surviving death and blood changes us. Something about our body chemistry adapts to something more. You need to feed much more now, and to defend your territory. I didn't mistake the warning. Humans were plentiful, but my appetites had grown considerably. It was only a matter of time before people would notice the death toll, or people who were going missing. In busier cities, it was easy to find people who were due in a pinch. People who were involved in crime, or homeless, or who were traveling. When police warnings were common, people tended to be more careful and not go out as much. My thoughts moved to a dangerous one. What would happen if there were no more humans left? What would my options besides death actually be? She must have read my mind, either intentionally or unintentionally. Our kind can, and does, certainly cannibalize each other, especially over territory disputes. This time it was made clear. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up at the realization that there was a chance she could kill me if she wished to. She was my elder, and much stronger than I was. This only made her more appealing in my eyes. She laughed, clearly amused. Together, we sawed up the body parts and put them into bags, as though she had just gotten back from grocery shopping. Wrapped in heavy coats to protect us from the cold, and to conceal our identities, we took the remains to a graveyard. Under the cover of night, we carried the bags and made our way through the many lines of graves. I could see the spirits of the dead wander through. They were oblivious to us, and focused on their own undead lives to care about what we were doing. I wondered whether there was an open grave or something where body parts could be brought. We walked towards the oldest mausoleum in the graveyard. She opened the rusty gate with a loud creaking sound, and we walked inside. It wasn't maintained well. I could smell the faint decay of the deceased, and no new flowers had been left for a long time. It wasn't the first nor the only grave to be forgotten. She pressed the button. The concrete slab moved and creaked loudly to open up to a dark stairwell. I could smell something foul, so disgusting, and wrinkled my nose. I gagged, covered my face, and nearly vomited with the foul aroma. This wasn't something I had encountered before. My companion was immune to whatever the smell was. She lifted the bag and walked down the stairs, humming softly to herself, and I waited for a moment before I followed her. Every step took me closer to that wet, dirty smell. It smelled like a combination of body odor, rotting meat, and a sewer leak. I heard scurrying around, and I could have sworn it was cockroaches or something. The sound was so familiar. There was a trough in the middle of the room. We were surrounded by filthy, humanoid creatures that had long since lost their sense of humanity. They crawled and ran on all fours, the filthy remnants of their clothing clinging to their bodies, and nor did they ever remove them during their natural courses. Their hair was a tangled mess, and with a ravenous squeal, the horde ran towards the trough. I watched her as she opened up each bag and put the body part in. None of them stepped too close, and instead waited patiently, whimpering to themselves and scratching their fleas or other pests. Come, don't show them fear. They can sense it. she bid, smiled and dropped a human thigh in with the rest of the meat. I walked through them. They growled and snapped at my heels. One even tried to take a bite out of my leg before receiving a kick to the temple. I made my way. They gathered around and I thought they would have swarmed me if she had not been standing there. "Shh. You are doing great," she encouraged with a kiss. And I lost most of my concern where I'd been intimate. But here and now felt so wrong on so many levels. I completed my task, pretending the humanoid monsters weren't there to worry about, and focused on that. I could hear them, sniffing and shuffling around me. What are they? Not all of our kind are able to handle the prolonged use of the lip balm. The ones you see here are the, disappointing children, she said, reached down and stroked one of their heads like a dog. The humanoid creature closed its eyes and practically purred, arched its back. I could imagine all the filth from them being transferred to her. I hate the idea of touching one of these things. I wanted to be anywhere but here. She seemed oblivious to the smell and how disgusting they were, while I had to fight the urge not to flee. I'm not sure why some become like this. I keep them down here to make sure they are fed and cared for. The lip balm. It was becoming more mysterious, and I wondered what exactly was in it to do this. Maybe it is a chemical in it, or perhaps some kind of genetic weakness, I offered dumbly. She still cooed at them, smiled, and I was reminded of a group of deranged kittens or puppies. She didn't answer me. We made our way up the concrete stairs and relocked the door, securing it. Once our kind caught your scent, we never forgot it. I could smell these creatures around the city now. Their odor was pollution, filthy and degenerate. That isn't a nice way to speak about your siblings, she chided me, took my elbow, and together we went on the hunt yet again. There was no finesse this time. We both gave in to the baser part of our natures. We drained them of life and forgot their names, faces, everything. All we wanted was to feed. And those that lived down below were well fed with fresh scraps we brought for them. Years passed, and they were the happiest of my life. I was forced to travel with her because we started to overfeed on the humans in the area. They needed time to replenish themselves and to forget about the missing people. We traveled to another city, then another, and another. I lost track of where we went. No matter whether the accents or cultures changed, we would behave the same way. It was also the first time I saw an open fight between members of my kind. A male, close to her age in strength and power. He met her gaze, and nor did he leave the scene. She, my companion and lover, took him by the shoulders and didn't suck his life force out. She attacked him with fang and claw, striking again and again, leaving a bloodied mess behind her. She didn't run, or try to hide the remains, and nor did she clean herself afterwards. It was a warning, and a clear indication that this was now her territory. I had trouble speaking with her for a long time after. It was the first time I saw her brutally slay one of our own kind. Not even humans were treated this way. I feared what could happen to me if I irritated her. She didn't say anything to coddle me, and I accepted it. Our kind soon faded away, and we were able to feed without worry. Another Valentine's Day rolled around. We took many lovers that night, shared them all, and we were well fed by the time we went back to the hotel room. One we claimed and became the de facto owners of. The place was a boutique, and had a private list of guests that would stay. We lay resting in bed, our bodies entwined before we fell asleep. I woke up, and I was alone. Her clothing and other items were gone, She abandoned me without any clear reason and had made her way into the unknown. All that remained was a fresh tin of lip balm and a note with the same infamous words: "Paint your lips with the red, claim whoever you desire, turn them into our kind, or send them away in peace." And with that, my Valentine's Day concluded. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please check out my Valentine's Day playlist for more Valentine's Day stories you may be interested in. What did you think of the story? Please let me know in the comments section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. This video is made with the support of my incredible channel members, Patreons, subscribers, and all my viewers. Thank you so much for supporting me. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.